The government sends questionnaires to owners of Wang Fuk Court to collect opinions. Law Reform Commission releases report containing suggestions on cyber-related crimes. And U.S. Senate advanced resolution limiting Donald Trump's ability to further attack Venezuela. Hello and welcome to TVB News. I'm Melissa Hekalea. The government has sent questionnaires to owners of Wang Fuk Court in Taipo asking for their opinion on long-term housing. A number of suggestions have been raised, including the redevelopment on the original site or the acquisition of the property by the government. Samantha Lee gives us the details.
The deadly blaze in Wang Fuk Court has left thousands of people without a permanent home since late November. As of today, more than 4,400 displaced residents are staying in hotels, youth hostels, transitional housing, housing society units, or Po-Tin interim housing in Tu Mun. But these are not long-term solutions. Questionnaires were distributed to the owners of Wang Fuk Court through the one social worker per household service. The 7-page questionnaire contains 5 questions, seeking their opinions on a number of options. 3 sites in Taipo are identified as potential locations for the redevelopment. The plot at Chung Nga Road is the fastest choice because the land has already been leveled. Around 900 units will be available in 2029. Another option is the site at Kwong Fuk Park, which has to go through town planning procedures for rezoning for housing development. Completion is expected in 2030 at the earliest. If residents wish to rebuild Wang Fuk Court on its original site, they will have to wait for the acquisition for all property rights, followed by demolition and reconstruction work. The entire process is expected to take at least 9 or 10 years. This will be the most time-consuming rehousing option. As redevelopment may take time, the government has offered an option of acquiring property rights, enabling owners to receive cash and explore their own rehousing choices. Estimated by the Housing Institute of Surveyors, the average price per square foot for a flat in Wang Fuk Court with land premium unpaid is around $6,000 and $8,000 for a flat with premium paid. Property owners can purchase a government-subsidized home in Kam Tin, Tongcheng, Pingshan, Kai Tak, and Chengquan-o, with the price per square foot ranging from $6,240 to $9,300. Residents can move in as soon as August 2027. Alternatively, they can consider Shengqi Court in Kowloon Bay, priced at $7,020 per square foot. Owners do not want to handle large sums of money can opt for a flat-for-flat exchange, under which they will receive a new subsidized unit of a similar value. The government aims to collect the owners' feedback by mid to late January and will pass it to the Emergency Housing Arrangement Working Group for assessment. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
The Law Reform Commission has released a report that contains 16 suggestions on cyber-related crimes and jurisdiction issues. Mimo Singhai reports.
In Hong Kong, cybercrime offences are covered under the Crimes Ordinance and the Telecommunications Ordinance, some of which the Commission says are outdated. After taking references from overseas jurisdictions, the Commission proposed 16 suggestions for 5 cyber-related crimes. These include illegal access to programs or data, illegal interception of computer data, and illegal interference with computer data and systems. Several groups could be exempt: accredited cybersecurity practitioners, parents who gain access to their children's computers for protection, and individuals who require data for research purposes. The Commission proposes a maximum sentence of 14 years for most basic offences and life imprisonment for the aggravated crimes. But the report has not touched upon AI-related offences.
The way in which artificial intelligence can be used, at the moment, we can't even see the fringes of it because it's developing so rapidly. Would need a separate and comprehensive review, which will go beyond the scope of our report in terms of reference. The way we have structured the 5 suggested offences is such that if artificial intelligence is used to commit that sort of crime, then that would also be a crime.
A cybersecurity expert said the Commission should strike a balance between legal and technological aspects.
Technology is moving quickly. They need to ensure this part, the technical part, should be included. Some very, very determined attackers and try to abuse the law and try to find out the gaps of the law and abuse the data and leak the data or attack the systems. So this is what is my concern, and they need to catch it up.
Lai said the report could enhance its clarification by including examples of cases that would constitute offensive behavior under the proposed law. Moments 9, TVB News.
Frost was seen in Takuleng this morning as the observatory issued frost warnings for 2 consecutive days. In Takuleng, very early this morning, a thermometer showed temperatures dropping below 0 degrees Celsius. A thin layer of frost formed on the roofs of some cars. A nearby farmer said that the cold weather has affected some crops. He said some vegetables are affected, but strawberries grown between 0 and 15 degrees Celsius are at their best, producing the most beautiful blossoms. Temperatures in many areas dropped to around 12 degrees Celsius. In some parts of the new territories, temperatures fell below 7 degrees Celsius. The lowest recorded temperature was 1.9 degrees Celsius in Takuleng. Beijing's foreign ministry said Friday, no matter how the political situation in Venezuela evolves, China's willingness to deepen pragmatic cooperation with the country will remain unchanged. This as the U.S. Senate advanced a resolution that would limit President Donald Trump's ability to conduct further attacks against Venezuela, sounding a note of disapproval for his expanding ambitions in the Western Hemisphere. Meanwhile, Venezuela honored the military officers killed during the U.S. attack that captured former President Nicolas Maduro. Tracy Furness has more.
Democrats and 5 Republicans voted to advance the War Powers Resolution on a 52-47 vote, ensuring a vote next week on final passage. The resolution would limit Donald Trump's ability to conduct further attacks against Venezuela. But it has virtually no chance of becoming law because Trump would have to sign it if it were to pass the Republican-controlled House. This as Congress said they were not notified about the attack on Venezuela before or after it took place.
This weekend, it's my view that the president launched an illegal and unauthorized attack on Venezuela. We now know that American troops were shot and injured in that attack. We didn't find out until days later. Nobody in Congress was notified before the strike happened or even in the immediate aftermath.
McGovern continued saying the attack was not about drugs or democracy, but about oil.
This isn't about drugs. The administration hardly even mentions that excuse anymore. This isn't about democracy or human rights. They have no plan here. They basically replace one dictator with another. This is about oil. This is about lining the pockets of big oil CEOs at the expense of the people of Venezuela.
At a White House briefing, Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about his specific role in the future of Venezuela.
Every other day, I'm chairing the meeting that we do on this among White House principals to talk about next steps to try to ensure that Venezuela is stable, and as the president has directed us to do, to ensure that the new Venezuelan government actually listens to the United States and does what the United States needs it to do under our country's best interest.
Meanwhile, Venezuela on Thursday honored the military officers killed during the U.S. operation that captured former President Nicolas Maduro. Honors were handed to family members by interim President Delcy Rodriguez, who presided over a ceremony honoring the Venezuelan and Cuban soldiers killed in the attack. Rodriguez also thanked China for condemning the U.S. aggression against her country and for seizing President Maduro and his wife. Rodriguez posted on social media that she had met with the Chinese ambassador to Venezuela. Beijing's foreign ministry said Friday, no matter how the political situation in Venezuela evolves, China's willingness to deepen pragmatic cooperation with the country and promote common development will remain unchanged. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Venezuela has released a number of imprisoned opposition figures, activists and journalists, both citizens and foreigners. The Venezuelan government described the releases as a gesture to seek peace and comes less than a week after then-President Nicolas Maduro was taken by U.S. forces. The United States says the release comes at their request as Donald Trump has been pressuring Maduro allies, now leading the country, to fold to his vision for the future of the oil-rich nation. The U.S. government said Venezuela's opposition have long demanded the widespread release of imprisoned politicians, critics, and members of civil society. The Venezuelan government insists it does not hold prisoners for political reasons. U.S. President Donald Trump said in a new interview with the New York Times that he doesn't need international law and that the only constraint to his presidential power is his own morality. Trump spoke to the newspaper Wednesday night and brushed aside international law on the limits to his authority to use military might to strike other nations, claiming he's not looking to hurt people. Trump did acknowledge that his administration needs to abide by international law, but made clear that he would decide whether such constraints applied to the U.S. He said this depends on what your definition of international law is. Trump also justified the Pentagon's abduction of Nicolas Maduro, alleging the Venezuelan president had sent gang members to the United States. He has dismissed concerns that ousting Maduro would set the precedent of a potential Chinese takeover of Taiwan. Still ahead, Wang Yi reads out letter from President Xi Jinping at China-Africa Year of People-to-People Exchanges. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance delivers warning to Europe over Greenland. Welcome back. Foreign Minister Wang Yi attended the launching ceremony of the 2026 China-Africa Year of People-to-People Exchanges and read out a congratulatory letter from President Xi Jinping. Wang noted in his keynote speech the world remains far from peaceful and that the law of the jungle runs counter to international law and the basic norms of international relations. Danny Zhou reports.
The event took place on Thursday at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, where more than 200 representatives from African countries and United Nations agencies pledged to deepen dialogue between the two civilizations. Foreign Minister Wang Yi hailed the launching ceremony as an important initiative jointly agreed upon by the Chinese president and African leaders. In his letter, President Xi Jinping elaborated on the significance of mutual learning among civilizations, which he says will promote world peace and stability. Meanwhile, Wang pointed out that the profound changes unseen in a century were taking place in international landscape and stressed that the global south, which includes China and Africa, is rising irresistibly. He further noted that power politics and acts of bullying breach the legitimate rights and interests of developing countries. In a world of turbulence, it is more pressing than ever that China and Africa together uphold fairness and justice, enhance solidarity and strengthen exchanges and cooperation, one said, with calls on prioritizing development and seizing opportunities to tap into China's market. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Demonstrations over soaring inflation continue to rock Iran, despite its theocracy largely cutting off the country from the internet and international telephone calls. Iran's state media broke its silence to report on the latest protests on Friday, alleging that U.S. and Israeli terrorist agents were behind the unrest. Short online videos show people chanting anti-government slogans and setting vehicles on fire in the streets of the capital, Tehran, and other areas. Donald Trump renewed his threat that the U.S. would hit Iran very hard if its authorities start killing people there. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance delivered a stark warning to Europe over Greenland, saying if they don't take the island's security seriously, the U.S. will. Nazvi Karim with more.
A vast glacial expanse, scattered settlements, and for long isolated from the world, Now, Greenland is at the center of a global tussle, with Trump looking to take over the self-governing island from Denmark. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said Greenland has a major strategic and security importance because of its location. And if Denmark and Europe fail to provide adequate security, the United States will be forced to make a move.
I guess my advice to European leaders and anybody else would be to take the President of the United States seriously. What has he said about Greenland? Number one, Greenland is really important, not just to America's missile defense, but to the world's missile defense. Number two, we know that there are hostile adversaries that have shown a lot of interest in that particular territory, that particular slice of the world. So what we're asking our European friends to do is to take the security of that landmass more seriously, because if they're not, the United States is going to have to do something about it.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is expected to meet next week with Danish officials, with Trump even talking about buying Greenland, similar to the U.S. purchase of Louisiana in 1803 and the acquisition of Alaska from Russia in 1867. France's Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said Greenland is not for sale. It is not up for grabs. We are no longer in the era where one could buy or sell Louisiana. Therefore, these intimidations must stop. The European Union's High Representative Kaja Kallas said she hopes all parties adhere to international law.
The messages that we hear regarding Greenland are extremely concerning, and we have had discussions also among the Europeans. If this is a real threat, and if it is, then what would be our response? The international law is very clear. We have to stick to it. It is clear that it is the only thing that protects smaller countries, and that's why it is in the interest of all of us, and we discussed this today as well, that we uphold the international law on all levels.
Nazri Karim, TVB News.
And back locally, a 3-day farm fair opened in Mongkok today. A total of 440 stalls gathered at Pha Hoi Park for the annual fair. Among them, 220 sell local agricultural and fishery products. Some visitors spent thousands of dollars for organic groceries to show their support for the local produce. A few exhibitors said they hope to promote local organic vegetables. And that is the news. Thanks for watching.